Welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring a really fascinating memoir today called The Bitterroot Inheritance, and our mission is to examine that fierce tension between, rugged independence and scientific intervention in the American West. So, to get us started, I want you to imagine like white knuckling a living right out of the dirt.
Right, just absolute survival mode.
Exactly. Every single day is a battle against the elements, and your entire livelihood is completely tied up in this small herd of cattle. Then a group of outsiders show up and mandate that you dip your precious cattle in communal vats of literal arsenic.
Yeah, it's a massive ultimatum. And it perfectly captures this very real historical clash between nature, local homesteaders, and, well, outside authority in Montana's Bitterroot Valley.
And this tension actually boiled over in 1910, right? I mean, the source mentions something locals called the Tick Wars.
Yes, the tick wars.
Yeah.
So the valley was dealing with a massive outbreak of Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which was carried by wood chicks. And back then, this disease carried a staggering 80% mortality rate.
Oh, wow, 80%.
Yeah, incredibly deadly. So scientists arrived from the East Coast with a strict mandate. Ranchers had to, soak their cattle in these toxic arsenic dips to kill the ticks and stop the spread.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if I'm facing a disease that kills 8 out of 10 people and scientists hand me a solution, I mean, I am taking it.
Of course, most people would.
Right. But these ranchers responded by blowing up the dipping vats with dynamite. I mean, why on earth would anyone use dynamite to destroy the exact thing trying to save their life? Were they just blindly anti-science?
Well, it looks like that on the surface, but you really have to look at the mechanics of their survival. The ranchers were terrified of something called shrinkage.
Shrinkage, like losing the actual cows.
Exactly. Forcing a herd miles across rough terrain to a vat and then soaking them in harsh chemicals, it often peeled the cow's hides or just killed them outright.
Oh, man, that is brutal.
It was. And to a homesteader living on the razor's edge of ruin, losing their herd was a guaranteed death sentence for their family. So the heavy hand of outside authority was like a faster, more immediate threat than the fever itself.
So they basically viewed the cure as worse than the disease.
Yeah, they absolutely did.
But if we fast forward to the 1970s and 80s, the memoir describes these exact same ranching families working, hand in hand with a local veterinarian named Kevin Horton. How do you get from throwing dynamite at scientists to a working partnership?
Well, what changed was that the science had to put on boots and get in the mud with them. Outsiders with clipboards simply didn't work anymore.
Right.
Horton was a local who suffered alongside them. The author actually shadowed him on a high school work release program and saw this firsthand. By the 70s, science was no longer a mandate from above, it was a gritty alliance.
And the author shares some pretty intense stories about what that alliance looked like in practice.
Intensely visceral, yeah. For instance, arriving at a ranch at 3 a.m. to treat a cow with a prolapsed uterus.
Ugh, rough.
Yeah, it's a life-threatening complication where the animal's reproductive tract essentially turns inside out. Horton had to use a massive metal spike to physically hold her anatomy back in place.
That sounds like medieval torture.
It really does. Or, spending hours fighting to deliver a calf, only for it to be born mangled and dead despite all their medical intervention.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Horton sounds less like a modern clinical vet and more like a battlefield medic.
That is the perfect way to describe him.
Yeah, he is operating out there in the muck, which really proves the author's point that out in the Bitterroot, mercy often looks a lot like violence.
And it wasn't just cattle either. The author recounts putting on thick welding gloves to help Horton inject feral barn cats.
Wait, literal pint-sized demons?
Yes, exactly. And the vet gets clawed deep in the arm during the struggle, and he just laughs it off. In that environment, neighbor wasn't a noun, it was an active verb.
Oh, I love that. Active verb.
It demanded competence, showing up when things went wrong and bleeding together. Horton earned their trust because he bled with them.
So we have this deep, gritty history, but the Bitterroot is changing rapidly today. Those old family ranches are being replaced by modern subdivisions, and you have these newcomers rolling in with sleek SUVs that, don't have a single dent on them.
Yeah, and the author is careful to point out that change is inevitable. And moving past the days of dynamite is generally a positive civic step.
Sure, naturally.
But the core message is a plea for these new residents to really respect the dirt. The people who have survived there for 6 generations aren't just background scenery for your mountain view. They are the keepers of a specific kind of toughness that built the valley.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, true value requires understanding the sacrifices that came before you, which leaves you with a final thought to mull over. If you decide to pack up and move to a wild, beautiful place, do you demand the land adapt to your modern comforts?
Or do you let the harshness of that landscape fundamentally change who you are?